Yo guys, Paunchy here, and today we're going to learn how to set up our Digitone to use with our Digitakt. Let's go!
Alright guys, so setting up the Digitone to be used with the Digitakt. First thing you got to consider is which one is going to be the master. And all that means is that the master is the one where when you press play, it will play both of them. Also, the master is the one that sets the tempo. So the way I see it, I don't know if it's because I'm a drummer or just because of the way I look at beats. I have the Digitakt set as the master. So when I press play on the Digitakt, again, it'll play both of them. And then, of course, the Digitakt sets the tempo. If I change the tempo, it'll also change it on the Digitone as well, which is super handy. So the other thing you got to consider in the back here is that the Digitone, I have the MIDI cable going out of the Digitakt into the MIDI in of the Digitone. So that means that any MIDI signals that are sent out of the Digitakt, they will be sent into the Digitone. So that's how I have that set up as far as cables go. The other thing cable-wise that you have to think of is I have the Digitone audio going into the Digitakt. So the stereo out of the Digitone is going into input left and right on the Digitakt. So as far as cabling, that's how I have that set up. The next thing you got to consider is, I'm going to show you this on the Digitone here. If you hit function and LFO, it'll take you to this master screen, and it has in L, in R, L pan, R pan, chorus, delay, reverb, and overdrive. So, of course, the bottom ones are effects. Those are send effects, whereas the top ones deal with basically the levels and the panning. So they're pretty self-explanatory. If you have something plugged into the input L and input R, that corresponds to these right here, input L and input R. So I'm not going to show you what it looks like on the Digitakt because it's exactly the same. But in this example, on your Digitakt, you're going to have to turn both of these up, input L volume and input R volume. Because if you don't do that, then you won't get any audio coming into your Digitakt, even though it's hooked up. Also, the panning, you want to pan the left to the left and the right to the right. So that way you actually get a stereo image from your Digitone. So, and then the other cool thing is on the Digitakt, you can use it essentially as kind of an effects box and add these effects on here. The interesting thing though is that the Digitakt doesn't have the chorus effect. So if you wanted to use chorus on your beats, then you would have to do this example the opposite way of what I'm showing you now. So, but the Digitakt does have delay and reverb. So you can essentially use the Digitakt as an effects box or like an effects pedal for the Digitone to add that stuff coming into the Digitakt. So hope that's not too confusing so far, but let's move on. So that's all set, our levels and everything. So let's go to the settings menu here and then go to MIDI config. And this is what you want to make sure you have set properly, otherwise it won't work. So first off, let's go to sync. And keep in mind, I just started a new project, so all the settings are on the default settings. So right now we have the Digitone set to clock receive. We have that checked. Transport receive. And then that stands for program change receive. So that means that any of these messages, these MIDI messages that are sent to the Digitone, it will receive them. Sounds self-explanatory, but just wanted to cover all our bases. So On the Digitakt, again, I'm not going to show you the screen on the Digitakt, but as you can probably guess, you want to set the Digitakt to the opposite. So for the Digitakt, you want to do clock send checked, take off clock receive. You want to do transport send, and then also program change send. So this is what it will look like on your Digitakt. However, keep in mind, we are still on the Digitone. So basically, clock send ensures that the Digitakt will send the tempo to the Digitone. Transport send ensures that when we press play, the Digitakt will play the Digitone as well. And then program change, this is, I guess I should mention, this one you don't have to do. This is another personal preference thing, whereas the transport and the clock aren't really a personal preference. You kind of have to do those. But for program change, if you change the pattern on the Digitakt, then it will actually also change the pattern on the Digitone. You know, based on how you have it set up, of course, based on which one is the master, like I mentioned before. But being as our Digitakt is the master, it will change the patterns of the Digitone. I personally like that because of the way I have all my patterns set up. If I have a pattern, like a beat on the Digitone set to like pattern 1, then I will have the Digitone synth pattern set to pattern 1 on the Digitone, so that way they line up, if you see what I'm saying. Also, if you change banks, then it will also change banks. So that's, to me, that's super handy. And also, if you have this set to program change receive only, I'm going to set this back because this is what we want our Digitone to be set to. Being as we have this only set to program change receive, if you change the pattern on the Digitone, it will not change the pattern on the Digitakt. And to me, that's a really useful thing because you still have kind of some leeway if you want to stay on one beat on the Digitakt, but you want to change the pattern on the Digitone, then that's something really useful by not checking program change send. So, you know, technically, if you had cables going both ways, you know, you had the out of the Digitakt going into the in of the Digitone and vice versa, then you could technically set them both ways and then you could control it from either one. But we're not going to go over that in this. I'm just saying that's a hypothetical that you could do. So, okay, so we have this all set. Again, just to reiterate, the Digitone is set all to receive, and then my Digitakt they're all set to send. So, okay, port config, you can leave this as the default settings in order to achieve what we're trying to do here today. So, and then channels, again, you can leave this in the default setting. The auto channel is set to 10. If you're not sure what that is right now, you don't have to worry about that. But both of my auto channels are set to 10. So, okay. So that's pretty much set up. We have our cables connected. The MIDI cable, I just have one MIDI cable, again, going from the out of the Digitakt to the in of the Digitone. I have the audio outs of the Digitone going into the Digitakt. And so we are set. So if I press the play button on the Digitakt over here, you'll see that it starts playing the beat that I had on the Digitone, and then it also starts, the Digitakt, and then it also starts playing the Digitone, which I don't have any pattern on here right now. So let's go ahead and just, I'm just going to add a pattern here. So just as an example, if I just press play on the Digitone, you can hear that it's just playing the Digitone. So I'll go ahead and stop that. So again, if I press play on the Digitakt, it'll play both. Okay, so simple enough. So, you know, there's a ton of things you can do with this. I won't go over them today. In a nutshell, that's pretty much it. Now we have our Digitone and our Digitakt set up to where they're both communicating with each other. The audio is shared. I should mention also that the Digitakt outs are the ones that are going to my interface and my computer right now. So that's why you can hear the audio of both of them. So it's just a way. All we're doing here is looking at basically like the signal chain. You know, there's kind of a flow of where things go. And again, everything goes to the Digitakt because that's the master. So what you could do also, which I won't go over today, maybe in another video if you guys want, but you could technically use the MIDI out of the Digitone to control another synth. So, and you wouldn't be able to do that using the Digitone. Why? Because the MIDI out is already taken up on the Digitakt going into the Digitone. So you would have to use the Digitone as the synth controller if you were using an external synth. So, all right, well, that's pretty much it for this. So don't want to, you know, I hope that helped you guys. I like to keep it simple, and hopefully we'll keep this a little shorter, but that's pretty much it. Hope that helps you guys, and I will see you in the next video.